Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Tired of the High Ground, Ready to be a Scumbag. My neighbors and I have an ongoing battle. We don't really know or understand why it got so bad. They rent and have been there for about 4 years. We own and have been here for 13 years. Their driveway is directly next to our yard, and there is an encroachment agreement for their garage that is on our property by a couple of inches. We have had no issues with any previous tenants and have been friends with all of them. Here are some of the things we have had to deal with. It started when he would idle his loud, really stinky truck on high for 1 to 2 hours at a time. We asked them to stop or compromise or something because fumes were coming into our house and making us physically sick. Not to mention that it rattled our walls, being less than 6 feet from our house. We offered cookies with our complaint to them as a, hey, we don't want to cause problems, please help us find a solution. They gave back the cookies, it did not stop. We tried to ignore it, and then they parked their RV just enough on our property that we couldn't use our back gate. This caused issues. We asked them that the next time it is moved if they could inch it over. He said no, and that it wasn't on our property at all. He would not answer the door when we tried to talk to him about it, again to compromise. So we called by law to get it moved right then instead. Then he started posting false Kijiji ads with our personal information, full name, address, phone number. My phone was going crazy. We contacted Kijiji and had them removed. And by the way guys, I just had to Google that. Apparently Kijiji is the Canadian version of eBay. Anyway, then he started blowing dirt and grass and leaves onto our freshly groomed lawn and parking on it enough that it was creating a mud pit. In the winter he kept shoveling snow onto our sidewalks and blowing snow against the house and back door. We asked it to stop via note since they were not home and talking previously didn't do any good. We received a note back that said, "Why don't you F off? Nobody likes you." We decided that once the snow was gone, we would build a fence because we had enough, and by law and RCMP were not interested or able to help, simply telling us to be good neighbors. We have tried. We installed surveillance cameras, one that runs down the side of our house and catches their driveway, which is visible to the street. We blacked out the areas where their kitchen windows are out of courtesy, even though we couldn't really see inside the house anyways. They started flipping the bird to the camera every single day for 2 years. We built that fence that ran down the entire length of our property. They kept running into it, leaning heavy items against it, pulling and pushing against it, causing it to lean slightly. We did nothing since it was still intact and still sturdy. He threw garbage over the fence one day. We had a dog that would eat the dumbest crap and we were worried he would cause her health issues, so we talked to them over the fence. The wife said that her husband would not do that, and even though we had a clear shot of him doing it on surveillance. She demanded we remove the camera and we declined since it was installed to keep tabs on the kind of stuff they were doing to our property. She insisted we were lying, again surveillance to prove otherwise. The next morning we had a threatening note left in our mailbox calling us lollipop suckers and to grow some balls, and then an RCMP officer showed up to talk to us about the threat we made to the neighbor. We explained our version, offered them the surveillance footage of both the garbage being tossed over the fence and the conversation that took place after. They reviewed it and decided to read the Neighbors the Riot Act and to stop untoward behaviors against us. So on and on. Last year we have him on camera pouring antifreeze into our diesel fuel tank. RCMP were called, they knew he did it. They wanted to act on it, the Crown prosecutor said no because their caseload was too busy, and yes, the truck was wrecked. Sure, we got insurance, but we are out the deductible and the long-term damages that are not obvious when something like this first happens. A few weeks later, food was tossed into our yard from their backyard and we were scared he was trying to poison our dog. More petty BS things. We were legit scared for our safety at this point because we have had authorities involved frequently and most of them admit that they see our neighbors as a real psychopath, but they cannot do anything about it. Can't or won't, I'm not sure. The landlords think we should have them over for coffee to see that they would never do these things and that we are imagining it all. Seriously, what the actual F? We wanted to take them to court, but in speaking with our lawyer, he did not feel confident that we would get enough to be worth the court costs. We decided to sell our house and get a restraining order against them. We filed. They made a counterclaim and decided to fight the order. They threatened us, we persisted. We ended up agreeing to a mutual restraining order, which has been easy enough for us to follow. Things quieted down, our house was listed, and now we wait because the virus has thrown a hitch in our plans of getting the F away from these people since real estate has slowed right down. We thought things settled, but they have recently started up again. Despite a no warning or staring clause in the order, he has been doing it frequently. Him and his buddies have been staying at us and our yard through the gap he created between the fence and garage. We fixed that gap so he cannot see us as much. And then yesterday he swerved towards us on the road. Our CMP cannot do anything again since it is our word against the neighbors despite the long-standing history of him lying and causing problems. We are done, we just want to move. We have been packed and ready for months. Rumor has it that we have a buyer, but they have to sell their home first. We have taken the higher ground the entire time. We have taken measures to protect ourselves and our property, but it is never enough. And now we want to hurt them in a way they feel it. But you know what? We won't, despite the title of this post, because it won't help matters. It will only cause a faster and worse escalation and nothing will be solved. And someone may land either in jail or a graveyard. Instead, I would love to hear what you would do in this situation. Give my imagination some fun thoughts to have a laugh over. It has taken more energy than I ever thought I had in order to keep my stuff together over this. I won't actually follow through with anything because A, why? And B, cameras, not just ours, but they have one. The neighbors across the street have some, and who knows who else. So it is just not worth the risk. So please give me some imaginative revenge candy to dream on. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say usually the revenge is more satisfying, but sometimes it is better to take the high ground to avoid further complications and maybe to make things even worse than they already have been. And by the way, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance, it really helps me out tremendously. And the next one is Entitled Neighbor Tries to Take Away My Android Tablet. So this happened around 2 to 3 years ago, so details are fuzzy. So I had a party at my neighbor's house. They had one bratty kid, a girl. They also had another girl who was not bratty. It was a small party, 5 to 8 parents. Since I was quiet and not many people in the neighborhood talked to me, I brought my tablet. I had to do some light gaming and relax. Kids and adults were in the basement sitting down. The adults talked to me for a little bit and the kids were on the Nintendo Switch. There were 5 kids and there were 4 controllers. So one of them were left out. I went to play light games on my Android tablet. Until the neighbor's daughter, the person who lives here who wasn't playing with the Nintendo. E.g. entitled girl, what is that? Me, my tablet. Can I play? No. Give me that. E.g. goes running to me to try to steal my tablet. I turn away and get up and try to leave. The E.g. starts making a fuss and her mom comes over. E.g. mom, give that to her right now. The E.g. mom yanks the tablet out of my hand and throws it at the wall. I had a rugged tablet so it didn't break. I got my tablet back and I run out, but E.g. dad blocks E.g. mom and E.g. sister blocks E.g. from catching me. I went out with my tablet and never looked back. In a few months, E.g. dad knocks on my door. I open the door, he says he was sorry, and in that time they got a divorce with the E.g. mom. He said she was very bratty and so was the E.g. Whenever they threw a fuss together in public, he and E.g. sister walked away because people were filming the family. And yeah guys, there's only so much entitlement one can take before you essentially have to stick your head in the sand out of embarrassment. And the next one is titled, I think I ran off a bad neighbor and now I almost feel bad. Almost. So about 3 years ago, the rental a couple of doors down from us started becoming a problem. He would do things like park his huge RV on the inside corner with all of its extensions out and have the huge power cord running out on the sidewalk so our senior citizen neighbor couldn't get by with her walker. Also park it in front of the neighbor's house on 4th of July and refuse to move it when they were having a party. He always parked his cable company work truck right in front of my house so my handicapped mother would have to walk with a cane 3 houses down to our house instead of just pulling up in front. When I asked him to not do it and explained why his exact words were, "It's a free country, move if you don't like it. We own our home and he rents. He can get effed." My mom has MS and just had a hip replacement, by the way. They had like 4 adult children living with them as well as the children's girlfriends. In a 3-bedroom house, as expected, all 8 people living in this house had a car, so there were always cars in front of everyone else's house, leaving no place for any of the other neighbors to park. His oldest son, who had the exact same car as I did, would honk his horn a bunch of times every time he locked his car. You don't need it to honk to lock it, I know this because I don't need to. The entire family were dicks and would scream at you if you confronted them with anything. "We have lived here 20 years. And blah 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 was always their argument. They also always got into fights in their driveway at all hours of the day and night. Finally, about a year ago, I got sick of it and sick of all of the people living there and taking over the entire street. I started reporting them for every single thing I could spot from my driveway. I became the biggest a-hole on the planet to counteract their a-holeness. They parked in front of my house. I would turn on my sprinklers. We have horrible hard water. Enjoy the water spots, you prick. They lifted their carport so they could park their RV under it. By supporting the whole thing with 2x4s, it was incredibly sketchy. I called code enforcement. The kid with the same car as me kept honking his stupid horn at 3 AM. I ripped into him in the middle of the street in my underwear and a t-shirt to the point that all of the other neighbors came out. Did I mention he worked night shift? After about a dozen calls to code enforcement, 3 calls to the police after being threatened, and watching all-out brawls in the middle of their driveway, the infamous RV shows back up out in the street plugged in with its extensions out. I figured it is spring break and they would be leaving soon, so I said screw it and left them alone. It was there a few days, but I just kept ignoring it, and then the strangest thing happened. All like 9 cars, their boat, their RV were all gone, just disappeared overnight. I asked the other neighbors if they saw a moving truck or anything, and everyone said no. Finally, about 3 days later, I see the sign. Estate sale. I'm thinking, damn, did that cranky old dude die? What happened? Not recognizing any of the cars in the driveways and knowing the sale, everyone's crap while they're out of town scheme is a thing, I wandered across the street. I walked inside to see a fully furnished house with everything still there, and I am thinking, great, the dude died. It looked like an episode of Hoarders in there. Anyways, the guy in charge of the estate sale tells me they loaded up their RV with clothes and photos and left everything else, skipped out on the last month of rent and bailed. He said the tenant told the landlord that the neighborhood had gone to crap and he was moving into his RV because he couldn't afford rent in the area anymore, being retired. He was out of there. I don't know if I'm responsible for them leaving or leaving in such a hurry, but I'm happy they are gone. At the same time, I feel bad that they had to move into an RV and leave their stuff because they couldn't afford to live anywhere else. And the next one is titled, New A-hole in a peaceful neighborhood learns his lesson. So I live in a quiet little town in the Midwestern United States. My house is the last house at the end of a sleepy little dead-end road. New guy moves in next door, let's call him Dick. Dick was probably one of those guys who was so popular in high school that he thought he had made it without doing any work and tried to spend the rest of his life living off of being the cool guy. The type of guy who drives a lifted truck and a motorcycle. Don't get me wrong, I ride motorcycles myself. What I don't do is sit in my driveway at 2 AM and rev my engine. There is a bit of a downhill slope from the middle of the street to our houses at the end, and Dick likes to race down this hill and then lock his brakes and drift into his driveway. The first winter after he moved in, I noticed that my mailbox has been crushed and there's fresh tire tracks in the snow leading down the street over my mailbox and into his driveway. A few days later, I see Dick standing outside and ask about this. He denies the entire thing, says he doesn't know what happened to my mailbox and that it must have been a delivery guy or something. I figure whatever and fix my mailbox. A few months later the same thing happens again. I fix my mailbox and move on. Sometime later this happens yet again. This time I'm pretty pissed. So I talked to my cousin who is a commercial welder and had him make me a mailbox out of some scrap 1/4-inch steel plate which was mounted on a length of old railroad track for its post. A little bit of glue and some cedar shingles and you would never know it wasn't a typical wooden mailbox. And also the railroad track post was sunk in concrete 4 feet into the ground. For the next several weeks I waited with anticipation every time I heard his truck roaring down the street, but nothing. Until about 5 months later when I heard his truck and then a crash. By this time I had forgotten about my mailbox and thought for sure he had struck another car. I ran out to the street to see if anyone needed help and there was his truck broadside against my mailbox, all smashed up. He saw me walk up and started yelling about how I had destroyed his truck and he would make me pay, and he called the cops. A cop showed up to take his report and Dick pointed out how my mailbox had been specifically designed to destroy his truck. I gotta admit I got nervous at this point. The cop looked around at the truck and the construction of the mailbox and then turned back to us and asked me if I had trouble with my mailbox before. I explained how it has been smashed several times in the past year and the cop then said, "It is pretty clear what happened here. This is an obvious case of wanton destruction of property." My heart sunk to the ground and Dick got a smug look on his face, but then cop turns to Dick and says, "I'm going to issue a citation for this, as well as reckless driving." You should have seen Dick's face at this point. He was boiling with rage as the cop wrote him 2 tickets and told him he needed to pay for the repair of the damaged wood on my mailbox. The metal was fine, had not even tilted it, but the wood camouflage had broken off. And you know guys, that reminds me, the whole thing about revving your engine really loud in your driveway is definitely something I would not suggest, at least in rural Thailand. I have heard quite a few stories on the news by now, where people apparently revved their engines in residential neighborhoods and then got shot. Obviously that doesn't always happen in Thailand, but apparently if you rev your engine really loud, some people are really aggressive when it comes to that. Which is kind of strange because other than that, people here seemingly don't really care about noise that much. And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.